One of the biggest things I tend to find holds people back the most in life is procrastination. There's sort of this idea that so many people have dreams in life. They have dreams, whether it's fitness, whether it's finances, whether it's relationships. People have dreams and they have an ideal lifestyle that they'd wish to achieve. But the thing that holds them back the most is procrastination. Specifically, it's doing the steps required to get from where they are now to where they want to be. So for this reason, in this video, I want to share some of the tactics and strategies that I typically share with my clients that help them conquer procrastination and ultimately achieve the lifestyle that they desire. Now, if you're not familiar with who I am and this is your first time watching this channel, my name is Lenny Richardson, also known as Leviticus Rich. I'm the founder and owner of Productivity Accelerator. Now, if this is your first time visiting this channel, my name is Lenny Richardson. I'm the founder and owner of Productivity Accelerator, a company that helps young, busy professionals get more done in less time using scientifically backed strategies. Now, what I've come to find over the past several years, and I found this in myself and I found this with others, is that procrastination is probably one of the biggest factors that lead to people not achieving what they want in life and ultimately not living the life that they want to live. There's a few different ways people procrastinate. Sometimes people procrastinate by simply just not doing the things that they're supposed to do. Like they know exactly what they want to do and they just don't try. It's kind of like someone who wants to learn a language and they know that they need to speak to other people in that language to learn that language, but they just choose not to do it. They choose not to learn the vocabulary. They choose not to understand the sentence structure. Or, for example, it's someone who wants to get a better type of career. They know that in order to get a better career, which would lead to a higher income, they need to maybe take certain classes, or they maybe need to get a certificate. They might need to read certain books, and they just choose not to do it. That's one form of procrastination. There's another form of procrastination that's also extremely common, and this is procrastination through distraction. And I see this a lot, and I've been guilty of this myself, where you know you should be doing something, but instead you scroll on social media. Or perhaps you know you should be doing something, and you might know exactly what the correct strategy is to get from point A to point B, but instead of doing that specific strategy, you do everything else besides the one thing you know you should be doing. For example, back when I was a full-time real estate agent, I would go to the office and I knew that the best strategy to get more clients was to probably make cold calls, was to probably follow up with the leads that I had consistently. I knew that perhaps answering my phone more consistently was a great strategy. Sometimes I get calls from people and I would not answer the phone at a particular time, and I try to call them back when it's more convenient for me. And I knew that that wasn't what I should be doing because there's tons of real estate agents out there and they're all super competitive and they're all trying to get leads. As another example, I know back when I was in college, if I ever had projects or papers to write, one of the things that I did super consistently was do everything else besides actually write the paper. I'd pretend to do research by looking at YouTube videos. I'd pretend to do research by scrolling through Google and eventually just getting distracted. I'd do everything except actually take notes, make an outline, and just write the paper based on my outline, which would have been the simplest and easiest thing, and I could have tweaked along the way. But why do we do this? We do this because, I guess in our heads, we pretend that taking some action is, in a way, a form of productivity. We believe that if we do something, it's leading to the results we want, when in actuality, it's just procrastination. It's just us pretending as if we're moving towards the path we want to go in. I'll share a quick story to kind of illustrate this point. A while back, I had a client who was a copywriter. His goal was to kind of get more clients for his copywriting business. He was sort of a freelancer. And at the time, what he was super focused on was reading more books and watching more content to become a better copywriter. And I remember we had a few different discussions, and over the course of several weeks of meetings, I said to him, "You seem like you're a good enough copywriter. It seems like you're good enough because you already have clients. If the goal is to get more clients, why are you focusing so much energy and effort and time on learning how to be a better copywriter when the thing that'll help you get more clients is likely doing outreach to get more clients?" And so we kind of had a few discussions. And over the course of about a month, no progress was made. And whenever I'd follow up, I'd ask, did you do the steps that we had already suggested? At this point, we had come up with a strategy in which he would reach out to, I think, as many different agencies as possible. Because I think at the time, what he was doing to get clients, he was kind of just reaching out to agencies through, I think it was Fiverr or Upwork. I think at the time what he was doing to get clients is he would reach out to agencies through Upwork and sort of just pitch them his portfolio. And each pitch took him about 1 hour. And so I said to him, the more pitches you do, it would seem to me, based on your previous success, that it's really just a ratio of input versus output. The more pitches you send, the higher the chance that one of those pitches will accept you and allow you to work with them. And so that way you'd have them as one of your clients. And whenever we'd follow up, I would say to him, how many agencies did you reach out to since our last meeting? And our meetings were every week. And he would say, I reached out to maybe 1 or 2. Why? Because when we went over his routine, when we went over his schedule, he had at least 7 hours every single week to reach out to agencies. Therefore, if every agency takes him 1 hour, he should have at least reached out to 7 agencies, assuming he couldn't make more time or assuming he couldn't get them done faster. Hopefully that makes sense. So we looked over his routine to figure out why he didn't reach out to that many agencies. Turns out he was spending more of his time still learning the process of trying to be a better copywriter instead of doing outreach. And the way he justified it was, I'm trying to be better so that way when I do get more clients, they'll get a better value service from me, which makes sense. It's perfectly reasonable. The issue is that he was procrastinating. What it came down to is he was simply just procrastinating. He was doing the things that he wanted to do over the things that he needed to do, and there's a big difference. In reality, what he could have done is simply just reached out and gotten more clients. In his free time, what he could have been doing is just spending a lot less time learning more about copywriting. Like I said, he's clearly good enough. He already had clients. The issue wasn't his skills. The issue was his outreach. He just wasn't reaching out to enough people to get more clients. And the clients he had weren't sharing his name with other agencies. That was the issue. So I share the story because chances are if you're watching this, you probably do this yourself in some way, shape, or form in your own life. There are probably things that you know you should be doing, and you're choosing to do other minor things that feel like you're being productive in place of the 1 or 2 main things that actually lead to the results you want. Now, what I want to do in this video is kind of explain why people do this. I feel like saying the why gets at the heart of a problem. And once you understand the why behind something, you can sort of, manipulate that issue that you have in order to become successful. Now, there are 2 things I've come up with over the past few years that people do. This is what I found to be consistent that causes people to procrastinate. These are the whys. The first reason that I found leads people to procrastinate is because they just don't know how to do something. They don't know the step-by-step process. They don't know where to begin. It's kind of like a student who has a big project that's due in like a month or 2. He might sit there, he might think about the project, but he doesn't quite know where to begin. He doesn't quite know which book he should look up first. He doesn't know which articles or which news sources or which URLs or links he should start with primarily. And because he has so many different places he could start from, but no clear direction on where to begin, it sort of leads into analysis paralysis. He overthinks things, and because he's overthinking things, he gets stressed out, and he overall never gets anything done. He's procrastinating. So, how do we come up with a solution? What exactly is a remedy to this problem? This is what works well for me. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't know the step-by-step process to do something, find someone who has done something very similar to what you're trying to accomplish and simply replicate their process. For example, if you're someone who, in the case of the student, has a big project, find someone else, another student, perhaps, that may have or might be in the process of achieving this exact same project and just ask them where they began. At the very least, you'll have a starting point, and once you get going, you can build momentum, and that'll lead you to eventually accomplish whatever goal you set out to achieve. If it's something different, say, for example, a very big, lofty goal. Maybe you want to be a billionaire, or maybe you want to have a big company, or maybe you want to get in super great shape, get to 6% body fat, and you've never done it before, and you don't know anyone close enough to you that has achieved that goal. What I would recommend is find someone over the internet, in books, wherever, that has achieved what you want to achieve, or who has come extremely close as possible. Maybe it's not going to be super identical, but the closer they are to achieving the things that you want to achieve, the better. And that's where your starting point will be. Why do I suggest this? In reality, everyone's different.
What works for some people might not work for you. But if the issue is that you have analysis paralysis because you don't know where to begin, then the solution is just finding a place to start. You just need to find a starting point to get you going. If you replicate, for example, if you want to become a millionaire, if you replicate someone who has become a millionaire, even if what they did will completely take you in the opposite direction, it's better to go somewhere than to go nowhere. Does that make sense? If you're gaining some experience and if you're gaining some ground, you at least find some means of making your way to the destination that you have in mind, to your intended destination. You can't make any progress and you won't go anywhere if you're not moving, if you're not taking action, if you're not taking steps. So that's my recommendation. If you're procrastinating because you don't know where to begin, then find someone who's done something similar to what you want to achieve and then just replicate their process. Eventually, you'll begin to realize that maybe their process doesn't work well for you. You might begin to iterate on what they've done. You might begin to adapt, or you might begin to transition to something else. But that's much better. That's a far better use of your time than doing nothing at all. If you do nothing, you'll go nowhere. If you do something, you'll at least get somewhere. So that's my solution to that first issue of procrastination.
Now, the second issue I found for why people procrastinate is they know what to do, but they're afraid of what the outcome might be. This is something I've struggled with a lot, and I think a lot of you probably watching this, maybe you struggle with this more than the first problem. I feel like deep down, a lot of people, you're afraid of the outcome of your efforts. You either don't know if your efforts will lead to tangible results. Say, for example, if you're someone starting a company, you might be doing that entrepreneur grind, but you don't know if your efforts will lead to tangible results. You don't know if your efforts will lead to your company growing. You don't know if the work you're putting into whatever this goal is will lead to you actually making the money that you desire or living the lifestyle that you desire. I think we all feel that. I think that's completely understandable. Or in a different scenario, perhaps you are making progress towards the goal, but you're afraid to continue because you're afraid of maybe the judgment. You're afraid of what other people might think of you. Perhaps you have some limiting beliefs behind the actions you're taking. There's a lot of different emotions or feelings you might have, like when it comes down to the end game of what you want when it comes to the destination. But in the grand scheme of things, a reason why people procrastinate is because they're afraid of what will happen if they achieve their goal or in pursuit of achieving their goal. You might know the steps, you might know exactly what to do, but you're afraid of what the outcome could be. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, what is the solution to this problem? I think the best solution to this problem is to simply understand that the steps you're taking towards the goal is in itself the reward. I don't think it's good to make the destination in itself the true reward. Rather, I think it's better to make the process the reward in itself. And the reason why I say this is because I think for a lot of people, you believe that, say for example, your goal is to start a company. Maybe you want to make, let's just say, $1 million. There are many people who might make $1 million only to discover that the $1 million is not going to solve all their problems and they have new problems that arise. I think if that is the case and if you make it to that destination, it would be very depressing to find out that all of your efforts were in vain. It'd be extremely depressing to figure out that you trying to achieve $1 million, you sacrificing so much to make that much money only to get the money and find that it wasn't fulfilling or it wasn't satisfying. That would be extremely heartbreaking. Instead of making the money the goal though, make the process the goal, make the experiences the goal, make you understanding that to get to that point, you may have had to step up. You may have had to try new things, experience new things, push yourself, grow exponentially to get the $1 million. Instead of the $1 million being the thing that satisfies you, make the process in itself the thing that satisfies you. Make the process in itself the thing that is ultimately fulfilling. And I think if you frame it that way, you're able to decrease the chances of you procrastinating. I'll share a quick story. I know for me personally, this is true when it comes to me starting Productivity Accelerator. I often think that the efforts I'm putting into creating Productivity Accelerator or trying to grow it could be in vain. There's a chance that maybe this company will fail. I get afraid of that a lot. There's a good chance that I'll work on this for a long period of time only to never quite reach the levels of success that I desire or that I hope for. But then I often kind of remind myself that the goal in itself isn't to reach a certain income level or a certain client base. The goal in itself is simply to improve. The goal in itself is simply to live life every day and ultimately just grow, have greater experiences that push me a little bit harder. I think that's a bit more rewarding, and I think that's a better framework. And that allows me to not procrastinate, because the goal in itself no longer is any money amount or any client amount. Don't get me wrong, from a business perspective, those are still milestones and goals to reach. But in the grand scheme of things, the overall goal is simply to improve, to grow, get 1% better every single day. And when I frame it that way, it makes me a lot less stressed out about failing or succeeding. And it allows me to kind of reduce the amount of time that I spend procrastinating. Another kind of quick anecdote. In my personal life, one of the things that I've been trying to do recently is create a comic book. And the goal is to kind of make a very long-term comic book, like an actual series, which I know will be a process in itself, a very long process. And throughout the process of me learning how to draw, throughout the process of me learning how to create the comic book in itself, I kept having fears about if people won't like it, if people will make fun of me, if people will maybe talk bad about it, if people will kind of hate on me for doing it. A lot of negative thoughts popped up. And luckily, I'll say that I've been able to kind of create a good pace for myself. I've been able to maintain momentum throughout the entire year so far. I started making a comic in November, technically January of this year, and I have not stopped since January. I've literally been drawing pretty much every single day, really since last year, since last November. But as far as creating comics, since January, I would say. And the reason why I've been able to do this is because I just detach my fear of the outcome from the goal or the gains behind me simply improving my drawing abilities. That's become the goal in itself, to draw as well as I can and to tell as great of a story as I can, even if I'm the only person that ever reads it. I think when you frame things that way, you can reduce procrastination. So just to kind of reiterate everything and kind of summarize everything we've talked about in this video, procrastination is one of the main things that kills your hopes and dreams. I tend to find that a lot of people, when they procrastinate, they don't achieve very much in life. That is a big mistake. You only live one life as far as you know, so make sure that you're using your life and living your life to the fullest. The way you do this is by not procrastinating on whatever it is you want to do. When people procrastinate, it's usually one of two reasons or a combination of both. First reason, they don't know how to do something. If that is the case, reverse engineer the process that someone else has done and replicate whatever they did, do exactly what they did, and you'll eventually come up with some progress. Maybe not exactly the exact progress that they had. Maybe you won't get from point A to point B as quickly as they did, but it's progress, and that's what matters the most. You want to reduce procrastination. Second reason why people procrastinate is because they're afraid of the outcome. If that is the case, understand that the process in itself should be the reward, and don't focus too much on the finish line. Just focus on the step-by-step process that'll help you move toward the finish line. So hopefully this all makes sense. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. By the way, if you're someone right now who has goals that you wish to achieve, and you're someone who does struggle with procrastination, but you want to achieve your goals much faster and much easier, what we're doing currently at Productivity Accelerator is, for 1 month, if you sign up today, we'll help you achieve whatever goal it is that you wish to achieve within 30 days or less. And if we can't achieve that, you pay us nothing at all. We eat the cost and we pay you instead. So if that sounds good to you, if that sounds like something you might be interested in, click the link below to sign up and get started. And until then, I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye.